Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy Tuesday. I have a very special guest on my I can't even talk today. Career, Clarity, and Confidence Live. I have Angela Champ with me. Angela and I met eons ago, I feel like. I think it was in 2017 or 18 because I worked with her organization when I was working in a leadership consulting firm. And we've just stayed connected ever since. So I'm so excited to have Angela with us because she brings a breadth of experience and deep knowledge for everything that is important right now, which is the Great Resignation, how employers need to adjust their cultures, because not only is she a human resources executive, but she's also an author and she has been in so many different places that she just has wonderful experience. So, Angela, welcome. Thank you. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are right now?
I will, and thanks so much for having me today. So, I have what I love to call a squiggly line career. I am the ultimate squiggly line careerist. I currently work as an HR executive. I'm also an author of two books, including the Squiggly Line Career. I'm the president of the Lean in Vancouver network here in Vancouver, British Columbia. But my entire career, I started so many roles in so many industries. I've worked in insurance and banking, oil and gas, construction, hospitality, tourism. And like a lot of people, when I graduated university, at the time that I graduated, there weren't a lot of opportunities available. So I took my 4-year degree, and on the strength of my grade 9 typing skills, I got a job as a mailroom clerk in an insurance company. And I ended up spending 11 years in the insurance company as a mailroom clerk, an office assistant, claims adjuster, fraud investigator, and then landing into learning and development. And that's when I realized that that was really my passion. But I have since moved. I've worked as a camera operator for a cable company, and through a squiggly line, I've ended up I've ended up where I am today. So I kind of have many hats that I wear.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is wonderful. And for those of you who are joining us live, or even if you're on the replay, drop your comments in the chat and then we'll get to them at the end. And if you are watching on replay, then Angela and I will be watching this and we'll definitely type in our responses to your questions. So, my next question, you talked about this a little bit, but like, how did you do this whole squiggly line career thing? So, talk to us because I bet that there are people out there, and if you are, drop us a like, a heart, or whatever. If you're one of those people who's like, okay, I've always been a camera operator or in banking or in insurance, but I really want to make the leap to a totally different industry or even a different career field. You've done this in your line career. So like tell us how you did this. Like how did you make yourself this squiggly line career from jumping industries and jobs and sorts of things?
Yeah, if you look at my career, my career path, my resume on paper, it almost makes no sense. How I started as a mailroom clerk in an insurance company and ended up as a vice president of HR in my first vice president job with almost no HR experience, and so it really makes no sense until you get to the depth of it. So as I mentioned, based on the strength of my grade 9 typing skills, I got this job as a mailroom clerk, and while I was working as a mailroom clerk, I decided to start this women's network for the women of my
Mm.
company. And my idea was that we would get together once every 2 months, we'd go somewhere for dinner, and we would have a guest speaker talk about things around women and advancing their careers, because it was something that I was quite interested in. And remember, I had just graduated university, so I was quite young.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, if I can get 20 people to register for this, sign up for this women's network, I'll have it made. And in the first hour, I had 250 people sign up. So obviously there was a need there. So I spent
Mhm.
9 years with this women's network while I was working for this insurance company.
Mhm.
And I was always doing something around workshops and learning and lectures and seminars with this women's network. Well, when I ended up leaving the insurance company, by then I was a manager in the learning and development
Mhm.
company. And that's where I had my aha moment that, I actually really love anything that has to do with imparting knowledge and learning and mentoring and guiding. And so my next job was as a revenue manager or my next company, I should say, not my next
Mhm.
job, was a revenue manager with a car rental company. a big part of it was creating sales programs, sales incentive, commission plans, but it was also coaching frontline customer service reps in a car rental. I was doing my MBA, and I graduated with my MBA. I went to go work for a bank in Alberta as a learning manager. So you could see that I'm now starting to do the learning thing, right? I'm transferring my
Yep.
skills over from company to company and industry to industry. But when I was doing my MBA at the same time, I did my thesis on a human resources strategy to attract
Mhm.
and retain Indigenous people to oil and gas. And so taking the strength of my thesis, the oil and gas company ended up hiring me to implement it. Suddenly, I find myself in HR. I hadn't been in HR up until then. I'd been in
Mhm.
operations. So, and I can keep going on and on. And what I was able to do was take the skills or the work that I was doing and transfer them. So when I was approached by a geomatics firm, they were looking for a director of HR, and I had almost no experience. By then, I had only been working 9 months in human resources with this oil and gas company.
Mhm.
But because I had worked putting programs together, I had, experience in understanding legislation. I had put together commission programs, which are compensation programs. I was able to take all of those skills and accomplishments that I'd had in other jobs, and I actually convinced the hiring manager that I had the skills to do the human resources job, even though I'd never worked in human resources except for 9 months
Mhm.
with the oil and gas company. So really, my squiggly line career is pretty varied, but it takes elements from every role I've had, cobbled together and presented in such a way that shows people that I had the skills to do whatever it was that I wanted to do.
I love it. You keep using a term here that I think is really important for folks to know, which is transferable skills. Transferable skills. And I think that you, in the next question, I'll have you give folks some advice, but you and I have both been HR folks. And I think some folks, especially women, get really hung up on, oh, I don't meet all of the qualifications. But one of the things you're saying that I really want people to take away with is, but it's skills. And sometimes, I mean, you can teach skills, but there are so many things that are like, oh, even though it might look a little different in this old job, I'm still using the same skills of building
That's
learning
right.
programs, collaborating, getting people on board with an idea, influencing, leading, like team building, et cetera. Like it's all skills. And I love how you said that, one of you did this because literally you were a mailroom clerk, but you were like, oh, I see a need. I'm going to organize this group. So, you know, putting your HR hat on for folks listening who are thinking, oh, I need a career change and I want to switch industries, and drop us a heart or a like if this is you, so we know. Um, what advice would you give folks? Because it can feel really daunting and overwhelming. So if you could break it down to just a couple really simple pieces of advice from somebody who is an HR person, what would you tell them if they want to make a massive industry switch?
You are spot on that we tend, particularly women, we tend to hold back and think, I haven't got everything that they're asking for in this job description or this posting. And the reality is sometimes a job posting is just a wish list, right?
Yes,
And I always give
true.
people the advice that if you can take that job description and map it to things that you have done, not job titles,
Mhm.
but achievements you've had or things that you've learned, courses you've taken, if you can map, excuse me, what they're asking for with what you've done, and you can get even 70% there, put your name in, because sometimes their job description is just a wish list, and when they meet you, they're going to be so impressed with who you are, they're going to hire you anyway. But here are some concrete pieces of advice. First of all, don't think of yourself in terms of a job title. I'm a mailroom clerk. I'm a camera operator. I'm a claims adjuster. I'm a human resources generalist. Think of yourself in terms of transferable skills. So
Mhm.
even if you've had one job or many jobs, what are the common skills that you're both good at and that you like to do? Because you might be good at something, but you don't like to do it, right? So you don't want to apply for a job that's
So
going to
true.
focus. Yeah, right. People, because
Yeah.
that's how you end up miserable. So just because you're good at it doesn't mean you like it. Make sure you're
Mhm.
good at it and you like to do. So start to identify what those transferable skills are. And when you are applying for a job, I know this is going to be very controversial. I am hashtag team cover letter. And the reason why I am in favor of cover letters, even though lots of HR and recruiters hate it, is because if you could write in a cover letter, not a regurgitation of your experience, but a narrative about how your skills meet what they're looking for. So it's a narrative about how you are the right candidate. Even though you haven't had the job title, then you are much more likely to be able to make that link. So really think about yourself in terms of transferable skills and competencies. If you don't know what that is, ask your friends. Ask
Mhm.
people, colleagues that you work with that you trust, say, what are 3 things that I'm very good at? See if it matches to what you like to do and see what else transfers to that. The
Mhm.
other piece of advice I'd like to give is make it as easy as possible for the recruiter to find you and to hire you. And that means, yes, you need to be active on LinkedIn. The more active
Mhm.
you are,
Mhm.
the higher up you will come up in the search results. Let's face it, it's all about algorithms.
Mhm.
Um, Again, hashtag team cover letter. Make it easy. Tell the recruiter or the hiring manager why you're the right candidate. Don't focus just on your job titles, but on what you've accomplished and what you can do.
Mhm.
Because recruiters look at so many job descriptions, so many, or not job descriptions, so many applications. They only have a few seconds. Make
Yes.
it as easy as possible for them to pick you and to shortlist you, at least for an interview. Because once you get in for an interview, you can convince them by telling them what you do and how it matches what they're looking for.
It's so good. You're so right. Being a fellow HR person, people were always shocked to say that when you were going through interviews, a recruiter may only spend, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds on your resume. There's so many, they're
That's
skimming.
right.
And so I love your tips about mapping. Yes, yes. What separates average resumes from the great ones is like, I did this, which resulted in that. And instead of just making it read like a job description, like when you are like a recruiter looking at these and going, "Oh, wow, they did this and got that and did this and got that." And I love your thought about cover letters. That might be a great argument for the cover letter because I tell you, there's two heated sides to this camp.
There really is.
But I do.
I always get messages after I say I'm team cover. They're like, no, we don't want them. Cover letters are useless if all you're doing is just saying what's on your resume. But if you're building a narrative, one thing that I've
Yeah,
done that's
good.
worked really well for me, and I've recommended this in my book, I've written this in my book as well, is take their job description and you make a table. And on one side of the table, you say what you're looking for, and you list,
Mhm,
things from the job description. And on the other side of the table, on the right side of the table, you write what I bring,
mhm.
and you match what they're asking for. So in my case, when I use this, it said they wanted experience in creating compensation programs. Now
Mhm.
remember, I had this by this point. I'm talking about the director of HR job.
Yeah,
When I was applying for it, I had only worked in HR for 9 months. I had not worked. I'd worked in
yeah.
operations before that, and so I wrote, "You're looking for experience in creating compensation programs." So I highlighted the commission plans, the incentive programs that I was responsible for creating and overseeing when I worked for the rental
Okay.
company. And then I wrote, you want this, I have this, you write this. What I did was I made it so easy for them to compare and say, actually, yeah, she has what we're looking for. I'm going to invite her in for an interview. And then it's on me to convince them
Yeah.
that they should hire me.
So good. And you dropped the other thing too that I don't think we talk about enough, and that is, LinkedIn is and Google are BFFs. So even like if you're doing a Google search, your LinkedIn profile is going to pull up early. So
Yeah.
make sure that under your name you have a lot of those skills. Like people sometimes try to get goofy or creative with those,
I
like,
know.
but really that's the most searchable part of LinkedIn. And so what I
Yeah.
always tell my clients to do is, put in the skills and the titles that you've had, and put the little bars separate, because that way if a recruiter like we used to do, or like you're currently doing, and looking for somebody with that skill and it's in
Hmm.
your little bars, like you're going to pull up near the top. One of the things that you said was that you like to call the Great Resignation the Great Epiphany. Tell me
Hmm.
more about that, because I really like the way you say that.
I do. I really feel like it really was about an epiphany and not necessarily just about quitting your job. There are
Mhm,
some cultural differences between what's happening in the United States and what's happening in Canada. So I'm in Canada right now.
mhm,
We haven't had as much of a resignation. There's tons of turnover and people changing jobs, but it's
mhm,
really been about this epiphany. So um, as I'm sure those of you that work in HR or even have experienced it yourself, at the end of every year, as kind of Christmas comes to a close and New Year is approaching, lots of times people are off work and they're thinking about the new year, they're making resolutions, and a lot of people have these thoughts like, oh, is this all there is to my life? Like, should I be doing something different with my life? And when we went into the first lockdown in March and April of 2020, I remember doing a presentation for a group of 60 HR folks, and I said, the same thing that happens at the end of the year is what's happening now, because people have been at home, they've had
Yeah.
time to think,
Yeah.
they've been affected by COVID, either they've gotten sick or they've lost a loved one or they lost a job or they've seen their company act in ways that they didn't expect. And people are now questioning their life choices. Should I change my job? Should I, find a partner? Should I move to a different city? And that's why I like to call it a great epiphany, because it wasn't just about quitting your job. But the result has been there's been a lot of job movement, and people are now, employees and candidates are making conscious decisions about what they want. Where do they want to live? Do they want to be fully
Mhm.
remote? Do they want to be fully in the office? Do they want to work for a big company or a small company? Do they want to be a solo entrepreneur? And so that's where the epiphany has come up, and people are really starting to move towards life is short. It taught us that it can change in an instant. I
Mhm.
can count on my community or I can't count on my community, and I need to make some changes.
Yeah. And if you're watching this again live or on replay and you had kind of a epiphany that you want to share, maybe it was about your work or your employer or the type of work, or maybe even just how you want to work. I even know so many people who thought, I never want to work at home. Now they're the same people who are like, I'm never going to go back. So share your epiphanies. Angela and I would both love to see them. And I think then you bring in the next question, which is, because of all of these epiphanies, what epiphanies have companies had to have to continue to attract and retain talent? Because I think it's like the people had the epiphany and now companies are like, oh, like we got to do some things differently around here.
I think the leaders who are more progressive, who are learning agile, who have kind of scanned the landscape and realized that they can't do business the same way that they were doing before,
Mhm.
either not just for their customers, but when it comes to employees, have really embraced and partnered with employees. So maybe they have given people options.
Mhm.
Maybe they've declared one way or the other that you can do this or that, and they've been more upfront about what they're looking for. Unfortunately, not every leader in every company is progressive, and some of them do want to go back to the old way because maybe pre-pandemic they were successful in what they were doing and they're nervous about making the changes. I've heard about lots of companies who are saying employees need to come back full time, and there's some good reasons to it. You lose water cooler opportunities when people aren't sitting side by side. There's a reality to that. I mean, there video or virtual is a substitute, but it's not the best. It's not exactly the
Not a one to
same.
one. Yeah.
It's not. And so there's pros and cons. Of course, some people have said we're going to go fully remote because it opens the entire world to being a labor pool, because now they're not limited by geography.
Mhm.
For some people, they've been able to move somewhere where it's cheaper and more affordable to live. And so for companies, I think they need to decide what they're one way or the other, which way they're willing to go, but understand that there's trade-offs either way. If you force everybody or say we're going to be a company where everybody has to come into the office 5 days a week, know that you're going to limit your pool, because people want flexibility and they want autonomy over their schedule. And actually, I want to make that point that it's not
Mhm.
necessarily about never wanting to come into the office or never wanting to work from home. It's about having, as adults, the freedom and the autonomy to make decisions that work best for you and your life. Maybe giving
Mhm.
people the option when your kid has a rugby game at 3 o'clock, that you can go and watch the game and not feel that you have to be at your desk on your laptop until 5 o'clock, right? So it's more about flexibility and autonomy. But
Yeah.
some organizations aren't ready to go there. And know that if you're one of the ones that isn't willing to go there, you might limit your pool of candidates. They might limit the growth that you have, because you might be growing, but you might be growing slower than others
Mhm.
within your industry, and you might not be attracting the best candidates to you. It's
Mhm.
really a trade-off one way or the other.
One of the things in my own research, working a lot with women, is that women were most impacted by the pandemic, especially women who are moms,
Yep.
or have caregiving responsibilities, one way or the other. It could be elderly or any dependents, and they want. And you said it so great. And that was even just something I think that was kind of a light bulb moment for me. If there was any epiphany, it was autonomy. Choice.
Yes.
Choice of wanting to work at home, choice of wanting when I wanted to go to the office. And I think for employers too, is if you are going to be in the office full time, I think people still want some sort of choice or autonomy,
Yes.
something or something somewhere. And what I know for organizations who are looking to attract and retain women, people of color, flexibility, remote working options are so important. And you're right. You may not see the differences right now, but 3 to 5 years, you might notice it in your bench strength and in your candidate pools. And it might be one of those slow trickles. And I know that can be hard to hear for some folks who are really tied to going back to the office, but that's what I'm hearing from my clients who are women. And that's what a lot of the research is showing as well. So I'm so glad that you said that. What's
Whether it's when in the office or a virtual,
Mhm.
there's still a subsection of organizations that really value face time. In other words, they want
Mhm.
to see you in the office sitting at your desk, or if you're virtual, they want to see that your little green light is on, right? Whether
Mhm.
you're on, Skype or Teams, they want to know that you're available or that you're online. And I think if all you're doing is letting people work from home, but you're checking to make sure that their green light is on, you might as well just have them come in the office because
Yeah.
there is no flexibility or autonomy. And so
Yeah.
organizations need to move away from this desire for face time and really look at results and output. What do you need this role or this person to do? What
So
are the
good.
achievements, the outcomes? And then let them do it. Maybe they need to do it at midnight because they've got a kid that's sick and they need the kid to go to sleep before they can actually do the work. Does it matter if the output is there? So focus on output and results and not just on FaceTime. I think that'll make the biggest difference.
I heard this somewhere, and I don't remember which podcast I heard this on, but it was a great question to follow, or a great thought or framework to follow up on exactly what you just said. It's like leaders should say, okay, what tasks actually do better when somebody needs quiet time and needs
Hmm.
autonomy, right? Just needs that focus, headphones, all in. And then what parts of our work actually would be better? And then it's like, instead of having like hard set days or times or whatever, however it looks, it's like, how do we organize our work around what actually is better at home and what's
That's
actually
right.
better in the office? And I thought that that was a great way to just kind of bucket work tasks like that.
Exactly.
Um, you know, in the last 2 years in writing your book, being a human resources executive, what else do you want folks to know? Folks who are thinking about making a career pivot or leaders who are trying to attract the best talent. Are there any other kind of things if you could shout from the rooftops, you would want them to know?
Sure, and it's almost the same for both. So if you're a candidate and you're thinking about making a career pivot in a different industry or a completely different profession, do not let fear grab you.
Mhm.
Look at what your transferable skills are. Do the exercises that are available in my book or Google it. You're going to find
Mhm.
a ton of advice and work your way. Think of yourself as a set of competencies and skill sets that are transferable and start talking about yourself in that way and not just by your job description. For employers, what I'll say is stop looking at people's resumes. I actually have a small section in my book for recruiters and it says, don't even ask for people's resumes. Write out the job description, say, this is what we need, this is what the job is, and this is what we need people to do. Tell us how you can do it.
Oh,
Tell us how
that's
you've done it before and how you can do it. Forget your job title. And so, really be open to looking beyond people's job titles and
good.
look at people's competencies. That might mean changing how you post jobs. It might mean changing what kind of questions you ask in an interview. It might even mean including some sort of an assessment or in basket exercise to see what kind of competencies the candidate has. Do not rely only on job descriptions because you will limit your pool. And earlier, Kelly, you were mentioning about women and people of color and how do you expand your
Mhm.
diversity of your candidate pool. Will move away from what university people went to, what job titles they've had, and really look at what people can do because that will greatly expand your pool of diverse candidates.
So good. Okay, so Angela, if people want to connect with you, know more about you, obviously let's make sure that they connect with you right here on LinkedIn. And again, if you've had any questions, whether you're watching this live or on replay, go ahead and drop them in the comments. And we will definitely be watching those and we can get back to you at some point. But tell us where they should go, not only to find your book, but to find more about you.
For sure. Three ways you can go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn.com/in/Angela Champ is the easiest way to find me. You can also look at my website, which is angelachamp.com. It's got information about the Squiggly Line Career, other books, and some speaking engagements that I do. And if you're interested in the book, which of course you should be, you can find it most easily on Amazon, but you can also find it Barnes and Nobles and other great retailers throughout Canada, the United States, and in Europe. So reach out. Let me know what you think of the book, if you've read it or if you're reading it, and would love to hear more about your Squiggly Line career.
Yeah. And from one potential author to another author, if you love her book, make sure you leave her a 5-star review.
Oh,
So
thank
authors
you.
are always appreciative of that. So Angela, thank you so much for joining us today. If you've had questions while we've been talking, again, you can drop them in the comments. But hopefully this gives you tips. And again, from two folks who've been in HR, I know I can't personally say it enough that do not let job requirements hold you back. I love what Angela said about the fear thing. If the job looks interesting to you, go for it. So
That's right.
thanks for joining me. And I will
Thank
see
you.
everyone here. Thank you, Angela. I will see you all here again next Tuesday.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye, everybody.